Hello, 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 and welcome to the College of Creation. My name is Dan.
And my name is Michael.
And we are Dungeons & Dragons DMs who love to homebrew items, spells, creatures, and features for D&D. And this is a show where we make brand new homebrew every single week based on the prompts that we get from our community, our listeners, our friends. They tell us what we're going to be making, and then we make it. And this week, we were tasked with making a mirror with a stat-absorbing ability. Some sort of magical mirror that absorbs stats in some way. And that was given to us by Grace. So thank you, Grace.
Yeah, it's a great prompt.
Yeah, solid, fun time. I had some interesting ideas. I have used mirrors in the past, but not as a stat-absorbing thing, as the very standard sort of, it's a world inside of a mirror, or there are creatures that are not yourself inside of the mirror, but they are crude reflections of you, sort of thing. You know? It's very, very classic D&D trope, it feels like.
I made one thing that's an actual mirror, and then a few other things that have reflective properties.
Cool.
I'm really happy with what I came up with. It's been a minute since we've made items, so it was nice to kind of get back into this type of thought process. Items are so much different than I think a lot of other things, because they can be crazy powerful or super mundane. Like subclasses and feats, there are pretty much prescribed levels of power for those, and even spells to a degree based on the power level of the spell. But items can really just kind of be whatever. So this was really fun this week, I think.
Yeah, I like items. Items feel like it's a lot easier sometimes for me to take an item and to just find the idea and then execute fairly quickly. So once I land the idea, it's just put some mechanics on it and then it's kind of done. I feel really comfortable and at home making subclasses, but those do require that you have the idea and then you kind of have to have 3 or 4 other ideas amid that same idea.
It's finding the through line too. Yeah. Because then you have to balance out the trajectory of the subclass. Like, how do these things stack up with each other? That all kind of has to be cohesive. And items can be very singular. Yeah. Kind of nucleic in the fact that they just, like you said, you make it and then you add the mechanic to it and then it's done.
Yeah. It's just occurred to me kind of in talking and thinking about this, when it comes to items, because I think they are so if the idea is there, it ends up being very fun and fairly quick for me to come up with. So I end up making a lot of homebrew magic items in the moment or in between sessions for a party. So much so that I don't often use very many magic items straight out of the book. And
same. Yeah.
I'm curious to know.
I'm the exact same way.
Yeah. Maybe from you and maybe from some of our listeners, I'm curious to know how much of your magic item rewards are strictly from the books, especially if you don't run modules, right? In many modules, there are specific magic items that are tied into the module. Sometimes they have narrative potential or a narrative connection to the module itself. And so they're designed in as rewards at certain points along the module. But if you're running a homebrew game, how often do you pull from the books? And also how often are your players asking for or looking for specific things when they go shopping or when they go loot hunting? How often are they looking for specific items out of the player's handbook, I wonder? Because I so rarely deal with that. It has been very rare in the past for players to come to me and ask specifically if they can have a magic item that they know exists within the rules.
I think for me, I will pull items at lower rarities quite often. I'll populate shops with those. I'll add those to loot drops, like common, uncommon. Sometimes a rare here and there. Very rare and up, almost never. I think those are the ones, the higher power level types of items that players like to invest time into, and so they like to invest like their character's time into as well. So those are the ones that end up being either produced with the character in real time or over a couple of sessions, or it's something that it's like a player's idea of something that they'd like to see, and it becomes an item that is thrown to that character after a quest line or something that I make. So I think probably low level items I use. I don't make a lot of those unless it's like something fun that like a running joke. I'll make low level items as joke items all the time. Like I have one in one of my games, I call it the Flub. It's just a fake club that's hollow.
Nice. You
can just store stuff inside of this club, but to people that are unaware, that just looks like a standard club.
Yeah.
Which is great. It's low. I think it's a common item. It doesn't have any other properties other than the fact that it just has like a sealed compartment. High level items I think are really fun to create with players. So I almost never will pull out like a Holy Avenger or something like that.
Well, and they're really good, especially at those ultra high levels. It makes so much more sense to make them fit your world and your lore, right? Because so many high level, like really, really high level, legendary level magic items have so much lore attached to them.
Very specific.
Yeah, that's sometimes really very uber specific and requires you be playing in the world that these things exist within.
Yeah.
But you're right. Yeah, the high level stuff is just like, it's so much more fun to tie into your world, your lore, and work with your players to like make something that feels really unique, because those are the items that people like.
I will say my home table does enjoy, especially for shorter games like one shots, or like if we can all get together one Saturday and play a whole story in a day or something like that. We'll start at high levels, and whoever's the DM will assign a number of items that people can pick.
Right. Yeah.
So in those instances, I do like to have my tables have at least a small amount of familiarity with the published items, because those, like, that's what they have to pick from. So that is nice to have such a wide breadth of items that are published available. I think that a lot of items that exist are very cool.
Yeah.
I think for my long form games, it just, for whatever reason, doesn't match up with with my running style, or I just happen to have players that like to be more creative with the gear that they're carrying, past the point of reskinning something that already exists.
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely played in those games that's like, everybody build your character. We're only doing like a one shot, or it's going to take like 4 to 6 hours. Everybody gets, like, you can either choose, a very rare and 2 common magic items, or uncommon magic items, or you can have like 2 rare items. Some spread have a couple magic items on your person, and that's it. That's all you get. Because you're not going to be finding loot in this game. You're not going to be like doing things, and we're establishing that like maybe you've been adventuring together and you found some cool stuff. It's not really that tied to any other piece of a story, which is very fun.
We've talked about items. Now let's talk about our items that we have made.
Why don't you present first this time?
I have brought back one of my favorite frameworks for presenting items. I've tried to do it several times, and it just never has worked out. Today, I am bringing back the to and from.
Fun.
So if you'd open your document, this week I made everything about the elements.
Okay, fun.
Elements of the world: fire, air, water, and earth. And this is a to and from between the Eladrin and elementals.
Cool.
Strangely diametrically opposed, right? They're both natural beings that make use of the elements of the world, but in slightly twisted ways from each other. The seasons don't directly line up with specific elements, and vice versa. And I think elementals are kind of strict and lawful, but not necessarily good or evil.
Mm-hmm.
And the Eladrin are much more streamlined, these high beings that make use of very chaotic magic associated with the seasons. So I feel like they are a good pairing. So I have 4 items today, and I will start with this top one here. I call these the Vanta Black glasses. These are to the Eladrin from the Elementals.
Fun.
This is a wondrous item. It is rare, requires attunement. And I will say before I get into all of these, I tried very hard to narratively explain where this mirror property is coming from.
Okay.
I think these all could very easily be reskinned to not have any mirror elements at all, just kind of come from different sources. But I think that they all somewhat make sense ish.
Cool.
So yes, the first item here, the Vanta Black glasses, made from the darkest igneous ore known across the lands. The lenses of these glasses are highly reflective on the outside and a deep matte black on the inside. They hold 5 charges and recover 1d4 plus 1 charges each day at dawn. While attuned, you are immune to the blinded condition. Additionally, whenever another creature deals radiant damage to you or attempts to blind you, you can use your reaction to spend a charge and force a Constitution saving throw. That's a DC of 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus Constitution modifier. On a failed save, the inciting creature becomes blinded and stunned until the end of their next turn.
Fun. Nice little reflective action there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So they try and blind you, but it just reflects back at them, and they potentially can't do as much for the next round or so.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So that's kind of the fire-ish
Nice.
element. The next, we move down to the water element. I call this the Basin of Reciprocity. This is to the Eladrin from the Eladrin. Mm-hmm. It's a wondrous item. It is very rare. This water-filled basin is stationary and cannot be moved. Basins like it are usually built within temples, monasteries, or other places of spiritual practice. As an action, you can gaze into the basin, see your reflection on the water's calm surface, and offer a sacrifice. Choose one of your skills and reduce its modifier by 1. You then gain a +1 bonus to a different skill that has been sacrificed into the basin by another creature. The skills available within the basin can be rolled randomly or selected by your game master. And once you've used this item, you can't do so again for 30 days.
Got it.
So it's like those libraries, those little like walk-up libraries that you give a book and take a book with skills. If you find one of these at your temple and you're just like, oh yeah, I don't really need animal handling right now, but I could really use a bump in performance. Let me see if this basin has something that I'm looking for.
And that's just permanent, huh?
Yeah.
Cool. I like
Permanent
it.
shift. -1 + 1.
-1 + 1.
Yeah. Moving on, I call this the Effigy of Clouds. This is to the Elementals from the Eladrin. This is a rare potion. Inside of a lavender-tinted bottle swirls a preponderance of tiny, swirling, billowing clouds. They are always in constant motion, even when the bottle is at total rest. You can often catch fleeting glances of a face in the clouds. As an action, you can choose a creature within 30 feet of you and uncork the bottle. The clouds pour out and surge towards the target creature, reforming to an exact scale cloud replica of it. The replica then attaches itself onto the front of the creature, reducing its movement speed by 10 and its range of vision to 30 feet. The cloud remains in place for 1 hour or until a strong wind blows it away.
Fun.
Suction a cloud onto the front of a creature, and it just impedes their vision and movement.
Yeah.
Not necessarily stats, like ability score stats, but definitely mechanical stats are reduced.
Yeah. I like it.
Thank you. And the last of the 4, I call this the Shimmer Stone. This is a rare shield. Requires attunement. It is to the Elementals from the Elementals. You gain a +2 bonus to armor class against bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage while you wield this shield. So it's not resistance to those, but it does protect you from those damage types a little bit better. This heavy and reflective shield can deflect deadly blows with ease and impose temporary debuffs on attackers. It has 4 charges and regains all expended charges each day at dawn. Charges can be spent as a reaction in the following ways. You can confuse an opponent. Spend 1 charge to cast Silvery Barbs. This only affects a creature after they make an attack roll towards you. Or you can try and neutralize an opponent. When another creature misses you with a melee attack, you can spend 3 charges to reduce the ability score they used to make the attack roll to 10 until the end of their next turn.
That's fun.
If you catch a fighter or a barbarian on the first attack of their turn, and you can reduce their dexterity or their strength down to 10, the rest of that turn, potentially, is going to be much, much worse for that enemy.
Like that.
And you can only do it once a day, but if you choose the right point in a combat, it could be very important.
Yeah, definitely. There's one thing here that I'm curious how you would rule it.
Okay.
That +2 bonus to armor class against bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. How would you rule it for an attack that deals multiple types of damage? I'm thinking of things that deal like a little bit of bludgeoning, but also some poison along with it. Would that +2 AC apply to that attack? As long as it deals one of those, you get the +2, or no?
I think that I would rule that it's universal. Yeah, if an attack deals one of those 3 damage types, even if it's incongruence with another damage type, that you would still get that +2 bonus. Yeah.
That feels right. It's not a mechanic that is seen very often in D&D that like triggers an armor class against a certain damage type, and I think it's because of that.
Yeah.
And usually I think it's like a damage reduction of some amount, even if it's not resistance, it's like by a certain amount.
Right.
Instead. But I like this. I think a shield with like a damage specific AC buff is kind of fun and interesting. And yeah, like I said, isn't used very frequently.
I had a lot of fun with these. I've been trying to use this framework for months, and I just haven't figured out the correct 2 sets of creatures to use it with, and then B, the right prompt to fit it into. So I had a lot of fun with these.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I really like the basin. I think the basin is very interesting and has a lot of narrative potential as well. And yeah, limiting it to like skills specifically and not like full ability scores, I think could also be really interesting.
Yeah, ability scores felt too strong.
Yeah, at least if it's permanent. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
if it's permanent, that's pretty wild.
I had the idea kind of to make a threshold, like a bottom and top threshold for how much you can decrease or increase a skill. Like you can't go below a +1 modifier or a +0. Like you can't dip into the negative. You can't push a skill past +10. Have a stricture in place so it's not like you're just loading into one skill and your character is just good at deception. You can't just like continuously just like drain all of your other skills to have a +30 in deception. I think that is pretty crazy.
Honestly, I think putting limits on it just doesn't seem particularly necessary if this is indeed a very rare thing.
Yeah.
And a creature can't use the same basin more than once every 30 days. Like, you would have to have a lot of things go right for you to max out something crazy here, right? You'd have to be in the same spot for long stretches of 30 days, or be able to easily come back to it. Enough people would have to pass through and also use it to refresh the like pool of skills that are available within it.
True.
Like, if you think about it, how many people are actually like using it? So what is the size of the pool of other skills that exist in any given basin? As a DM, I would say probably roll something like a D4 to see how many skills there are, and then just select randomly what the skills are. Maybe a D6 if you want to be like, oh, this does get used somewhat often, but like, how often does it get replenished? how often is the skill that your character wants to find going to be replenished into that pool?
Right.
So there's a lot of other limiting factors on it, I think, that are just like, this is not going to be so common that it's going to create a problem, I think.
Right.
And I think there are plenty of narrative reasons that you can make this not an issue if your players do want to like try and spam it and game the system. There are things built into the lore of this, at least in my mind, that would be like, well, the skills available can be selected by your game master. And if your game master just decides, no, nobody's come by here that's wanted to put deception in there, sorry. You can choose a different one if you want, but like, that's it. Those are your options.
I also thought about this question a lot while I was writing this. Would your character know the skills available before you make the sacrifice? Like, when do you find out what's loaded into the basin? Yeah. Do you know that going in, or do you make the sacrifice and then you find out what your options are? Because I think, or are certain basins different? Like, certain basins have it just like etched into the stone, and it magically rewrites when you put your skill in, and some are just blind.
Maybe you could put that behind a check, potentially. I mean, religion or arcana, perhaps. You could put that behind a check.
Yeah. I like that. So you don't know unless you are really intuitive. Yeah.
Right. Your DM can roll, see how many skills are available, either roll or choose. You can, do a quick check to see if you can get any vibe of like what opportunities are open to you here. And then you can sacrifice something and then you can get something new. But like, and maybe, if you want something specific, maybe the DM says, well, there's let's say there's a 10% chance of there being that in here. So, roll and we'll see, if they roll on a D10 and roll a 1, then like, okay, sure. Yeah, there is animal handling in there or whatever else you're looking to improve on. So I think it does leave some mechanical things open to the DM, but I think it's cool in its use. And I wouldn't put any limits on it beyond what's already there. Yeah, that this seems like a very cool little like narrative moment thing. And unless it was like a core and interesting tenet of the story or the module that you're trying to run through, I would probably have players encounter something like this maybe once or twice.
Right.
Ever. And they're just like not super common.
In that vein, I think there should be more items that you can't take with you. I think not enough stationary items exist in the game.
Yeah. I definitely made a couple what I would categorize as stationary items as well.
All right. Show me your mirrors, please.
Indeed. So I didn't really have a theme or a concept of like, singular cohesion this time around. I was just thinking about different ways that I could like have mirrors be stat absorbing or otherwise, changing stats, changing abilities, changing something about the character. And so I came up with 4 things today, 3 items, and 1 thing that I think is very interesting and I think we should talk about some more.
Okay.
But let's go through the items first. First of all, we have the hand mirror of the improved self.
Okay.
So this is more, this is kind of the only take along with you item that I created. I think the other ones are generally fairly stationary, although if you can make it work, I guess go ahead, but like it definitely more challenging. But this is just a hand mirror. So this is a wondrous item. It is rare. When you spend 1 minute looking into this polished silver hand mirror, you can cause one of your ability scores to decrease by 2 and another ability score to increase by 2 to a maximum of 20. This change lasts for 1 hour. If you use this mirror more than once in a single 24-hour period, the decreased ability score is reduced by an additional 2 for each time you use it after the first time. I should also mention, I should have written here, the change lasts for an hour or until you use the mirror again. Yeah, you can't keep buffing the same one by 2 over and over. Like you can only have one, and if you want to change it, it's going to cost you 4 points. And if you want to change it again, it's going to cost you 6. you get diminishing returns at
Yeah.
a certain point.
Yeah.
I didn't add a limiting factor on how many times it can be used, like per day or anything like that. Just the limiting factor of like, if you need a little extra something for the day, or for a situation you're about to walk into, if you just need to be a little bit more charming and you're willing to give up some of your constitution for it, go for it.
Yeah. If you're dumb enough to use this more than 3 times,
I don't. Yeah. Why would you do that? That seems
you
unwise.
get what's coming to you.
Seems very
That is
unwise.
your choice.
But yeah,
Correct.
so there's that one.
Lay in that made bed.
A pretty simple thing there. Then we have the Shifting Glass. This is a legendary wondrous item. This grand mirror stands 12 feet tall, and its wooden frame is decorated with hundreds of carved faces of all species, ages, and expressions. A creature that stands in front of the mirror.
Pick it up. Take it with you.
It's 12 feet tall. Good luck. I mean, if you're Goliath, I guess go ahead. Just don't break it, please.
Come on, barbarian.
A creature that stands in front of the mirror and speaks its command word immediately transforms into a new species as though affected by the Reincarnate spell.
Yeah.
Additionally, the creature rolls a D100 to determine its new age in years.
Ooh.
So you just change your species and age. You immediately shift to something new.
Oh, wow. God help anybody above 90 or below 10.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Depending on your species, I suppose, you could roll a straight
That's
100
true.
and be a dwarf, and you'll be like, okay, that's fine. That's okay.
So, like, certain species in the published material, they've kind of moved away from the very, very low lifespan species. But, like, in the 2014 version, like, for example, Aarakocra typically only live for, like, 30 years.
Right.
So if you're one of those species and you roll like like an 85 or above, you just turn to bones.
Right. So the thing here is that this is assuming the 2024 version of Reincarnate, which only rolls a d10 to determine your species.
Right.
And your choices are Aasimar, Dragonborn, Dwarf, Elf, Gnome, Goliath, Halfling, Human, Orc, and Tiefling. I think across the board, almost all of those have a fairly typical human lifespan.
Yeah,
or
like 80,
or a fair bit longer. I don't think any of them are the super low lifespan ones for this particular version of the spell. So that's kind of what I was assuming in this thing.
Gotcha.
And now that I'm looking at it, even the old version also didn't have any of those species either. It just had a more complex list of like stout versus lightfoot halfling and the sub races there.
Yeah.
But the Reincarnate spell is the table you roll on for this item. Additionally, the creature's original face magically appears among the rest of the carved faces on the mirror's frame.
Oh, I love that.
And then once a mirror has affected the creature in this way, it cannot affect the same creature again for 30 days.
I'm just picturing the narrative implications. Like, if you have a table of players that are really just invested in their party, playing a session with that type of narrative forward table, and you come across this mirror, you see all of these faces, a wide eclectic series of faces on this mirror, and one of your party members uses it, and everybody in the party as characters, and then also at the same time everybody at the table as players realizes what that means, and you just see this history, like maybe centuries long history of creatures that are now tied together by this mirror. What a beautiful picture. What a wonderful, wonderful scene. This is great.
Yeah, I enjoy that vibe a lot.
Really nice. Maybe underpowered compared to other legendary items from a mechanical standpoint.
Right.
But as an impactful piece of plot, it makes up for it. Like, I don't care about any legendary weapon. Like, I could care less about any of those. Like this is a thing that you talk about years after a campaign is done.
Well, but also, like, I mean, think about this in the hands of an NPC, or in the hands of like a party who is, perhaps has gotten themselves on the wrong side of someone powerful. Coming across this is incredibly powerful because it doesn't it's not a disguise. You are changing your form entirely.
Right.
Your body and your presentation will look entirely different. And so anyone who is looking for you or anyone who thinks they know what to expect when seeing you is going to be bamboozled. I mean, this is a surefire go into hiding mode sort of thing for a villainous NPC, for example. You could meet the villain a while away. You see this mirror maybe in their estate, and you meet them years later, and you don't realize that you have just run across them until they reveal to you, it's been me the whole time, that person who you were like, you're not a shape changer. How did you change your face? Oh, goodness. Oh, you used this thing. It's got a lot of narrative potential, and it's mostly legendary because I don't want there to be more than like one of these in the world.
Right. Oh, for sure.
This is like a singular thing.
It exists in one room, in one house, in one place.
Yeah, indeed. And then we have another similar item where it's like, I don't want there to be more than one. This feels like a unique thing. This is the Gray Mirror. Inspired by something that you will probably guess fairly quickly. This is a wondrous item. It doesn't require attunement necessarily. I put requires attunement, but it allows for attunement, if that makes sense. One can attune to it if they wish. Crafted by an unknown artist, this hanging mirror is accented with gilded filigree and is exquisite in its design. A creature attuned to this mirror no longer ages, and magic can't make it older or younger, but it can still die of old age. It also no longer shows any scars or physical blemishes. Any creature that looks into the mirror can see the true alignment and creature type of any creatures reflected in the mirror, as well as see any conditions, diseases, or curses affecting them, unless that creature is the creature attuned to this mirror. Any creature that sees the reflection of the creature attuned to this mirror witnesses a vision of horror and must make a DC 18 wisdom saving throw or become frightened of the creature indefinitely, having witnessed its true form. An attuned creature cannot willfully end its attunement to this mirror.
Yep. That's the best part of the whole thing. What a great item. The fact that it's actually a backdoor curse is fantastic.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
But not mechanically a curse. I would assume that remove curse would not help.
Yes,
the
correct.
attuned creature here.
It does not.
Yeah, that's great. I love any story like Sherlock Holmes or Jekyll and Hyde or those types of tales that kind of keep getting recycled over and over throughout media. And Dorian Gray is one of the ones that I feel is underrepresented because it's such a cool concept.
It's great.
I don't know why it's not rehashed more often.
I went with the mirror version of it just because that I think has more interesting mechanical implications for D&D specifically.
Agreed.
Because it's hard in D&D. Like, you can't really do the picture of Dorian Gray thing actually because the picture really, that story really relies on Dorian Gray being like acting a certain way, and the internal like vision of the soul through murder and exploitation and all this other stuff becomes it becomes foul in its appearance in the picture itself, which is tricky when you're thinking about things like alignment and like trying to track reputation, behavior, honor stats, for instance, is something you could maybe work into it, something like that. But the idea that like the reflection is what is the thing, and this includes the creature attuned to it, the creature that decides that like they want to attach themselves to this mirror, which like I think if you were to understand what this mirror does, there would be a pretty clear sense, I think, from a character standpoint that like this is not wise to attune yourself to this. Even without the no ability to age, nothing can make you older or younger, and you don't show any scars or physical blemishes. Like this is definitely an NPC item, but one that like I think would fit very nicely into a story version that you're doing a clear homage to Dorian Gray for. Here's some mechanics for you. This could be fun.
And something like this could fit into so many subgenres too. Like it very decidedly horror, right? You could use this in almost any noir setting or horror setting and it would fit in right away. But I think this could also be very comedic too. Like if you have some really crazy characters in your party and you're in this, wild fantasy land, having a mirror like this, like in a fun house, where it's just a bunch of normal mirrors, and then you come upon this one terrifying mirror, would be really funny and a very cool story beat. It certainly works in standard medieval settings too. It's a great like sub boss. Having this in kind of like an antechamber. Fantastic. I really like this a lot.
Yeah, seems like fun. I enjoyed it. And then finally, I made not an item, but I made a Bastion facility. So, again, Bastion facilities are special facilities that you can add to your party's Bastion, their home base. Many of them have, sort of special abilities to them. Some of them have level requirements, and you can add them. They take up some space, and sometimes they have hirelings, and they can create things or harvest or empower your party or recruit new hirelings while your party is continuing to adventure. So I have made a Bastion facility called the Mirror Room, and I will preface this one by saying, like, I, as a DM, don't know if I would actually use this just because I have a much more loose idea about, when my players come to me perhaps with conversations about wanting to change something about their character or make adjustments to how their character is presented in the world, things that have happened to them that might change what they decide to do, or maybe they're just not having fun with their current class, etc. anymore. I'm very open to having those conversations and finding ways to adjust, to respec into something more fun for the character, and find a good narrative reason to make that happen. However, if you're at a table and you want to play a little more straight by the rules, but you still want to allow this potential option once the players gain sufficient level, give this a try. This is the Mirror Room. It is a level 13 Bastion facility. There's no prerequisites of skills or anything like that. It is a cramped space, which I believe means it takes up like 4 squares. It takes up a smaller size in like the Bastion space. It does not come with any hirelings, and when it comes to the Bastion turn, you can give the order to empower. Now, the Mirror Room is an empty space with one mirrored wall. When you stand facing the mirror, you can almost see shapes just at the edges of your reflection, as though trapped behind the glass. A character must be present at the Bastion when you issue the Empower order to this facility. Any character who spends at least 8 hours alone in the Mirror Room on any of the 7 days following the order being given can re-roll its ability score array, or redetermine it through point buy if that's how you do it at your table.
Sure.
A creature can only use this facility once per Bastion turn, and each time it is used, roll a d20, and on a result of 1, the mirror cracks and cannot be used again. So this just allows a player to like respec their character.
Yeah, that's great.
Once on a Bastion turn while they're in the Bastion. I considered making it much more complicated and allowing you to like change your class as well. But I decided to keep it fairly simple. But mostly I was just interested in creating a Bastion facility as an exercise. in the creation process, because I have not done that yet.
Yeah.
And so reading through some of the stipulations on like, what exists and like what might be gaps that could be filled was very interesting and fun.
I like this a lot. I think that making other Bastion facilities is a really cool idea. I think Bastions are very cool. And I'm excited to start implementing them in my games because I have not had a true chance to do that yet. So I'm interested in like having a functional mechanical home base. Sick. Well, this is great.
Yeah.
What a great week. Items are fun. I like all
items
of
are
these,
fun.
and it has been too long since we've made some items.
Yeah,
so.
it's true. But yeah, it was very fun to make. Yeah, I generally feel like all of these were very fun, and I just tried to go very thematic with them, which was very fun. And I like how thematic yours are as well.
Thank you. Shall we roll for next week?
Let's do it.
We have 20 prompts on the table given to us by our friends in the community. And if you have a prompt that you would like to listen to Dan and I create and talk about on the podcast, please let us know. You can get a hold of us by email. That is collegeofcreationpod@gmail.com. Or you can come and see us over on the Patreon, same name. You can subscribe at the free tier and listen to all of our recordings, see all of the documents that we have put out, and message us and give us some new homebrew prompts. We'd love to hear from you. But Dan, why don't you go ahead and roll, and we'll see what we're going to make for next week.
Indeed. Here we go. That is a 10.
That's going to be more items.
Okay.
More items next week. A magic item that changes the user's personality when used.
Interesting.
That is from Matt on the Discord. A magic item that changes the user's personality.
There's some stuff that I could think about being very heavily crossover between these two prompts.
Yeah.
Would really not be hard to cross over these two prompts into a single item.
Yeah.
A stat-absorbing mirror that changes your personality.
Correct. Yeah. Now, my constitution is now higher than my strength, and I'm mad about it.
Arguably, my shifting glass could also change your personality.
I think so. Yeah.
Arguably.
I think so.
Well, that's fun. I'm excited for that.
Good prompt. Thank you, Matt.
Yes, thank you, Matt, for that prompt. And I'll be interested to make some more items. Michael, thank you so much for creating and for podcasting with me today. Before we say goodbye to the people, do you have anything to say to the people?
As always, I do have something to say to the people before we say goodbye. Dan spoke about this briefly just a moment ago about how when he runs games, it's a little bit looser as far as respecing characters and letting players make changes to the foundation of their characters if something isn't working out. A message to the DMs out there. Do that. Just do that. Nothing is so serious that you can't give a player something to make their time in your game a little bit better. I have certainly started making finished characters that I thought were going to be awesome and very fun to play, and then the moment I'm dropped into the game, I realize that I've made a grave error and it's not fun to play that character at all, whether it's because of the setting or because of the party makeup or because of the thematic elements that I just didn't understand until we were in the world. Whatever the case may be, we've all had situations where we've ended up embodying characters that just don't feel 100% correct. Just let your players change those things. Let your players create a brand new character if they need to.
Yeah,
because you don't have a grasp of what the game is going to be until you start playing it, regardless of how thorough your session 0 is. Just do your players and yourself really that service. The more fun your players have, the more fun you are going to have as a game master. So just do that. Do that for your players and for yourself.
I had a player fully respec from Ranger into Druid because it made narrative sense to do so. And yeah, his whole character is different now. And we're really enjoying the experience of being loosey-goosey with that.
We love to see it.
Well, Michael, thank you once again. Excellent creations today, as always.
Same.
Until next time, everyone out there, take care of yourselves, be good to each other, and we will talk to you next week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.